We spoke with White House National Security Advisor John Kirby for more on the latest negotiations for a ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel and the situation in Gaza. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby, thank you so much for speaking with us. Just today, New York Prime Minister Netanyahu said the policy is clear. We continue to hit Hezbollah with all our might. We will not stop until we achieve our goals. The U.S. is pushing a temporary ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. Israel says right now that's not an option. What's the disconnect here?
Well, we're talking to them about exactly how to see if we can't move this forward. As you saw, multiple nations last night called for a 21-day ceasefire. And I want to stress a couple of things. It's 21 days. It's temporary. Nobody's suggesting that Israel doesn't have a right to defend itself against Hezbollah terrorists. Of course they do. I mean, Hezbollah just launched a ballistic missile at Tel Aviv just yesterday. But we believe that if the goal is to get families back home up near that border to restore their lives and their livelihoods, the way to do that is through diplomacy, not through an all-out war. And so we're calling for a 21-day ceasefire. We wouldn't have issued that statement last night if it didn't come on the heels of what we believed were productive discussions with Israeli leaders at very high levels. And those conversations with those Israeli leaders, this is my second point, are continuing today in New York City.
A senior U.S. official told ABC News, quote, Israel acts like they are the superpower, not the U.S. The pressure has done no good. They do whatever they want. What's your response to that?
I think comments like that are unhelpful and, quite frankly, not reflective of the deep and contextual relationship that we have with Israel. President Biden has been a staunch supporter of Israel in his entire public life, certainly as president of the United States, putting F-16s with American pilots in the air to shoot Iranian missiles and drones down. I think we've proven to a fare thee well that we mean it when we say we take our obligations to Israel and to their self-defense very, very seriously. Now, look. They don't agree on everything. Prime Minister Netanyahu and the president have known each other for going on 40 years. But when it comes to the two-state solution, for instance, clearly, we have a different view. But on the big thing, the thing that matters the most, that's the safety and security of the Israeli people, both leaders believe strongly in that. And so that's why it's important to have these conversations and these discussions. And again, those are ongoing today.
With regard to the ongoing war in Gaza, what's the latest on a ceasefire to get the hostages home, including Americans, and to stop the bloodshed of innocent civilians?
Man, Lindsay, I wish I could tell you that, we're on the brink of a breakthrough here. We're not. There hasn't been a whole lot of progress in recent days and weeks on getting a ceasefire in Gaza forward that would allow for those hostages to get home. And the principal obstacle to this progress is Sinwar himself. He's sitting down there in a tunnel, surrounded by hostages, and unwilling to have any kind of meaningful negotiation and move towards a ceasefire that would get those hostages home and get much-needed, desperate humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza. So we're going to keep at it. The president directed the team to continue to work to see if there's anything we can do to move this forward, and so we're still trying to achieve that outcome.
Should Netanyahu be doing anything specifically to try to move this forward?
Well, we are, as you might expect, very much having active conversations with the Israelis about trying to come up with a fresh approach here, a way to move it forward. It was an Israeli proposal that started this whole thing back in May that really formed the architecture of the agreement, and the vast majority of that architecture was approved by both sides. It's when you get down to the last 10% or so, when you're really talking about implementing details, that it got very, very hard.
We spoke with the Queen of Jordan earlier this week, and I just want to play you a little clip about what she had to say about America's role in this conflict.
Today, we're much closer to a regional war than we have been in the past year. And I think it is time for the global community to act. Specifically the U.S., I think the, expressions of concern or even calls for a ceasefire really are meaningless when you continue to provide arms that kill civilians. The answer is never more arms. That only leads to more violence and more escalation. And America's support, the blanket support that's provided for Israel, has exceeded any reasonable political calculus.
Your response on that, if Israel continues to press ahead on two fronts of this conflict, is there a point at which the U.S. needs to consider adding conditions to supporting Israel?
Well, I think, as I think we've shown, we have not been shy about expressing concerns to the Israelis about the manner in which some of their operations have been conducted. Back down when they were operating in Rafah, we did withhold a shipment of 2,000-pound bombs because the president was concerned that those kinds of bombs could not and should not be used in densely populated areas. So we have been very firm with the Israelis, again, about the prosecution of these operations. We also know it's important that Israel has the means to defend itself. And they're in a tough neighborhood, and they're up against enemies that are fully resourced and funded by Iran. And so we're also doing everything we can to try to make sure we're holding Iran accountable for these destabilizing activities.
White House National Security Spokesman John Kirby, we thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah.